Hi, thanks for joining us today on Real Estate Insiders TV. I'm Danny Poulos with the Elite Lending Team at Fenby. Our guest today is Scott Warner, and Scott and his wife Julie are the Warner team at Illustrated Properties in Palm Beach Gardens. And Scott and his wife are both experts in golf luxury communities in Palm Beach County. And there's a lot of information he's got about trends in these communities that I think you're going to find very useful and really new. So Scott, thanks for joining us today. And take a minute, tell people who you are, what you do, and how long you've been doing it.
Great, thank you, Danny. Wonderful to be here. Thank you for the invitation. My name is Scott Warner. We are the Warner team at Illustrated Properties. We've been real estate agents in Palm Beach County since 1999. Relocated in '86 from Chicago with the primary focus I wanted to play golf and enjoy the lifestyle down here. So we've been well versed in what's happening in the golf industry because that's my passion, what I do in my spare time.
So let's, obviously golf is what brought you to golf communities. So let's talk about some of these big trends that you and I have discussed before about communities that have golf courses on site and memberships on site. Where's all that going?
Well, Danny, I think you have to look at the demographics and the trends from the last 20 years. Over the last 20 years, the number of participants involved in golf has dropped, the number of rounds played has dropped. And if you look at the demographics, Danny, we had the silent generation, which was 1925 through 1945. The pinnacle of their career was joining a golf club,
right.
Being a golf member at a golf club. Baby boomers came next. It was still important, maybe not as important, but still important. Since that time, the interest in golf has dropped off. So now you're faced with, what do we do to handle the decline in golf, and how does it affect local real estate?
So you're finding, I never even would have thought that you're finding less people actually playing golf than before, so less demand for that type of property. So these developments that have golf on site, how were they affected by all that?
A good question, Danny. What's happened is when we first moved here, there was always the ones that had equity mandatory memberships. But a lot of the newer private clubs like JDM, which is now Ballin Isles, Frenchman's Reserve, places like that were brought in, they initially did not charge a mandatory membership.
Really?
Yeah. But as they've matured and they're looking to maintain their members, they've gone that route. And so they've had to go ahead and make mandatory. And the newer development like Amirasol, that was always mandatory, but its fees were much lower.
Right.
Over the years, they've gone up. Now, what has transpired as a result of that is when you get into the situation where the mandatory has been applied retroactively, there are people there that purchase under different circumstances.
Right.
They did not purchase with the idea that a mandatory membership would be required, and so now they're faced with paying what could be substantially increased fees or figuring out, do I need to live somewhere
Now, they were already bought there because they wanted to play golf.
Correct.
And they were already golfing, there just wasn't that mandatory membership?
It wasn't mandatory in many cases.
So how does that affect the value of their homes moving forward? They were there, golf was included, then there was mandatory memberships imposed.
Yeah, good question. What's happened, if you look, and we can go across the board in maybe three specific golf courses that we had. Ballin Isles was the first.
Right.
They put the mandatory in. They actually reached an agreement that for those people that were there originally, they could sell their house without a membership, but subsequent buyers would then need to have a membership, and it would have to go with the house. So the result was, if you look along dollar figures, certain houses at a different price break, they were actually impacted because the people decided to sell, and in order to sell, they discounted the price to allow for the increase in the fees that were mandatory.
And it's really, I mean, there's no way to recoup that, right? Give us some real numbers.
Okay.
An example how it might have worked.
If you had a development in there, say a Coral Cay that was nominally $400,000,
right.
As a result of that, you might end up purchasing that house for $200,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
But the buyer was really spending the same amount of money. It was just that they also needed to be involved in the mandatory
Correct.
membership,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. They bought within, there's a trade-off, Danny, because they were able to purchase a house a lot cheaper than they ever
Right.
could. They could roll in the cost of the membership and still be ahead if they had purchased the house previously at the higher price.
Okay, and that obviously is the trend now to move towards mandatory memberships to cover the expenses of maintaining a club. But I also see a lot of these clubs seem to be rebuilding and renovating and adding new facilities and new amenities. Seems to be opposite the trend, where you're worried about the expense, but no, they're expanding.
They are expanding, and, obviously, we had Bound Isles that brought in the golf center, tennis center that they liked. Ibis has a sports center that they've approved, and recently Mirasol has voted on and passed that they're going to expand their facilities and clubhouse. I think what's happening is, in order to attract the newer demographics, the young professionals, 40s and 30s,
Right.
it just can't be historically golf, and not that those were just that, but they're offering expanded menu activities geared toward family facilities, family functions, family involvement. And so that's where they're expanding these things, trying to bring in the newer demographics. But it does come at a cost.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I guess the active lifestyle is more and more popular, but you're right. Well, my parents and their parents, if you saw the Cleavers on TV, they were all talking about going to the club, and it was usually, they were talking about golf, right?
Yes, indeed.
So now we're talking about tennis, health clubs,
Kids' activities.
And stuff for
Spa
kids.
on-site, golf lessons, tennis lessons, everything else is now available for
right?
kids.
So it's really not that these type of amenities are going out of favor, but there seems to be a shift.
There is
So-
a shift, and obviously there has to be, because it's not being driven just by the golf anymore.
So how about the buyers of those homes, though? I know in most of those developments that you mentioned, you've got your upper echelon, multi-million-dollar homes.
Yes.
And then there's homes where we're probably under $500,000. How is it affecting the demographics of the people that buy in those communities?
Well, I think the first number you mentioned, it's not impacted, but say the under 500,000, sure, it has an impact, because when you look at the fees now, particularly like for an Ibis, where they went from being owned by the developer, they took it over. Your social membership was $5,000, is now $40,000.
Wow.
Your annual dues were $1,000, they're now $5,000. So if you go ahead and calculate all the fees between a POA and HOA, the fees for your membership, and you have a food and beverage, and then you tack on this $159 a month for 10 years for the expansion,
Right.
you're looking at a sizable monthly outlay before you pay your principal and interest on your mortgage.
So you're probably thinking that you maybe, if you're spending $250,000 for your home, by the time you get done with what your monthly expenses are, it may be like paying for a $500,000 house, but there's a trade-off. You're getting something for it.
Yes, you are.
I mean, obviously people are interested in all these things, or all these clubs wouldn't be adding them. They're not stupid.
Oh, no, they're looking ahead, and how am I going to attract people into the community down the road? And interesting enough, we had an instance where a gentleman had looked in Ibis, and at the time the house he was interested in was $400,000. But given that, with the market and then this mandatory membership, he was able to purchase the same house for $180,000.
Right.
You buy an $80,000 golf membership, you pay $260,000 with a golf membership. That's still, if I do my math, $140,000 less than the house he would have bought before this happened.
Absolutely.
So there's a heck of a value there for those that are looking for it.
So it looks like it's good news for people coming into that market now. I mean, there seem to be good buys.
Oh, yeah.
The only people seem to be getting the short end a little bit are the ones caught in transition, right?
I would say that's a true statement. And unfortunately, that's, the market's never static, and you have to adjust to what's out there. I mean, you can ignore it, and then the club will be in financial difficulty because they're not attracting the new
Right.
members. Unfortunately, for those that are in that strata of houses that may be affected, it means they're going to have to discount those houses to move them in order for them to leave that community and go somewhere else.
Right, and I would expect there's lots of developers that are sort of filling the void, thinking, okay, now I've got those people that were used to paying for a $500,000 house, they're not interested in all those amenities, so there's being a market created of single-family homes without all of that.
Absolutely.
And probably marketing as such, no membership, no this, no that.
Yes, no
Right?
equity or required membership. Yeah, it's a big point today.
That's awesome. So, I mean, there's good sides to all of it. We just have to get through that transition phase. So, new communities, are the new communities coming on with the amenities, or most of them without?
Well, what you're seeing now, Danny, is the new communities are focusing on a resort-style clubhouse.
Gotcha.
They don't have the upkeep of a golf course, but they do have a clubhouse that offers you Pilates, fitness. You have stuff for the kids there. They'll have tennis courts. They'll have a
Sure.
resort-style pool. They've just eliminated the very big expense and time-consuming involvement with golf, but are offering the rest of it. And that is where they're really making their bread and butter with these places, offering this to young families that are looking for those amenities.
And it's not like there's a shortage of places to play golf. So,
There is
I mean, that's still out there for anyone
Oh, yeah.
that wants it.
Yeah.
So let's take a minute, Scott. Tell everybody how they can reach you with any questions about golf, luxury communities in this area, or really anything to do with buying and selling. You've been an expert in this field for a long time.
Great,
Tell them
thank
how
you,
they can
David.
reach you.
Yes, again, my name is Scott Warner. I partner with with Julie. We are the Warner team. You can reach us at, my phone number is 561-385-0938. Julie's is 561-635-6061. Our email is realtor@thewarnerteam.com, or you can go to our website at www.palmbeachscott.com.
And I mean, just from this conversation, you can tell that if you're going into that market and looking for amenities, things are really, really changing. And to navigate where you should be and what you want to pay for and what you don't want to pay for, you really need an expert to help with that. So give Scott a call.